Ты видишь, что это такое?
How did a drone travel over 1,000 miles in the air undetected and then make a U-turn and come in from the west and hit the city from the opposite direction of Yemen? Yeah, and this is the Israeli response to a drone strike in Tel Aviv that killed one Israeli Belarus national. And that was really shocking in and of itself. But in context, this is not like the Houthis and the Israelis are suddenly going at it. This has been happening since October 7th. The Houthis, the Israelis claim, have fired over 200 times on Israel, but the coalition, not just the Israelis, but the US and the UK, operating in the Red Sea, have been shooting down these drones and ballistic missiles for months. And in fact, you go back and you look at, is this the first time that anyone has responded and started hitting the Houthis where they are? It's not. In February, the US and the UK struck positions in Yemen as well. What's different here is that the Israelis hit that port, and they hit it very hard. This is a giant oil depot that, by my understanding, is still burning some 2 days later. And it's going to cause widespread civilian infrastructure ripples for the people that live under Houthi control in Yemen. And by all accounts, their standard of living and how they've been oppressed under that regime's rule for years now is abysmal. It's horrible. So striking a position at the port is not only causing incredible ecological damage, but there's still sections of that city in Hodeidah which has no power. It's a desperate situation, and when you put that in context with how did the U.S. and the U.K. respond to the Houthis' actions throughout the course of this war, well, they struck military positions, and by all accounts, the images that we got back when that happened in February looked like underground facilities or facilities that were out in the desert, not smack in the port off the coast of the city. So there are some key differences here. The Israelis really hit hard. The U.S. and the U.K. Hit hard too, but in areas where military positions already existed, where you're hitting facilities, weapon storage facilities, and perhaps some of these launch sites. But the Israelis say, well, we're not necessarily hitting weapon storage facilities. We're hitting the port itself to stop their ability to ship in these weapons from Iran.
Ты видишь, дрон летит? Крестюш, ты видишь, что это такое?
Yeah, that in and of itself is fascinating and really, I think this deserves more critical attention. How did a drone travel over 1,000 miles in the air undetected and then make a U-turn and come in from the west and hit the city from the opposite direction of Yemen? These drones, as we understand it, and I think everything that the Israelis tell us about these drones, it is accurate, but I don't think that they're telling us the full story about the drone itself, how it got close to Tel Aviv. They say that it was modified so that it would have an extended range. That seems to be accurate. The drones that we know and their capabilities from Iran would be really pushing the limits. If this was launched from Yemen, all of the Iranian-made drones are gas-powered. They're about the size of a small car. They're really impressive feats of engineering, but by all accounts, most of these drones are packed with consumer-grade parts that you yourself could buy. So it's not like this is high-tech military equipment. It's not like it's stealth technology. It's going to show up on radar. It's going to appear as a fairly large target. But the real fascinating part about this is that the Israelis say they saw it from the beginning, or at least the coalition did. They say that the object itself was spotted by somebody, and it's believed that it was the U.S. that was in the area with ships that saw not just this drone, they say 3 other drones and a ballistic missile that were shot down, intercepted. The Israelis say that the U.S. shot down those 3 other drones and the ballistic missile. I've talked to CENTCOM, which controls U.S. forces in the region. They won't confirm whether or not they did shoot down those 3 drones and the ballistic missile. Then this 4th drone somehow escapes and flies over the airspace of several other countries along the way through this on the southern side of the Red Sea, skirts up the Red Sea, again, 1,000 miles, comes out over the Sinai in Mediterranean coastal waters, and probably, and I don't have this verified, but by my assumptions, it probably had to have been at altitude and then descended down out over the water and made an approach as a descent. What's kind of interesting is that that's the same path that commercial aviation flights take into Ben Gurion Airport at night into Tel Aviv. So perhaps the Houthis understood that, hey, maybe there's a way that we can kind of disguise or trick or cause some confusion by taking the same route in that a 737 would to come land at Ben Gurion. Because if we come in from the east, from the land side, we're going to actually fly right over the airport, and it's far more likely, one, we're going to be way over Israeli airspace for a lot longer, but it's also going to probably be more likely that somebody in air defense is going to look at that and go, what is that, and shoot it down. What's really shocking is that as it makes this descent over the water, it comes probably just under or about 100 feet away from the U.S. Embassy before it explodes a block away. Was the embassy the direct target? Nobody's answering that right now, and I don't think anybody ever will say for certain. And this isn't the main embassy either. The main embassy's in Jerusalem now, but still U.S. diplomats and the consulate services are still based in this building. It hasn't moved. It's still the U.S. flag flying over it. So that's a big, interesting note to all this. But as that drone is coming in, I mean, Tel Aviv's been under rocket attack dozens of times from Gaza throughout the course of this war. The alarm sounds, people run indoors and take shelter. This time, a drone, a much larger aerial target than a rocket, does not trigger the alarm. Everyone's asleep at 3 a.m. Nobody gets any warning. And then it just explodes. There's some incredible video of it going right over the embassy. A block later, just a street away, explodes in air, shatters hundreds of windows. It kills 1 man, injures at least 8 others with shrapnel wounds, 2 that were sleeping in their beds in their apartment, and then another 2 that were walking on the street at the time. And everyone in Tel Aviv is going, how in the world is it that we can pick up these rudimentary rockets that are flying actually a lot faster than these drones when they're launched from Gaza, but we didn't see this sedan-sized drone that's lazily, flying in off the coast. The Israeli sources that I've spoken to that are familiar with the air defense say that when it comes to the coast, they weren't looking at the west as much as they were looking at the east, the north, and the south. Because to the north, you've got Hezbollah, and so they're kind of segmented within that office or within that division to put more staff on the air defense array, looking at the north, looking at the east, towards Iran, towards Yemen, and not so much on the west. They've said now that they're moving staff, they're calling in people to work overtime, and that every direction is going to get a lot more attention. But it's strange. I mean, they're playing this off as it was human error, that it was spotted. They say for a total of 6 minutes when it came close to Israeli airspace, but I'm getting conflicting things. I'm hearing that they saw it the entire time, that at least the U.S. knew it was there, or that something about this just doesn't add up, and we're not getting the full story from any of the military guys, and it's probably pretty likely that we won't know the full story on this because they don't want to reveal how this came to be and what mistakes were made. Drones in particular are a blind spot for Israel. Over the last 9 months, we've seen several other instances. I think I'd have to go back and check my notes, but I'm almost certain that the majority of fatalities on Israel's north in the war with Hezbollah have come from drones. not the rockets that Hezbollah has been firing. The Iron Dome and the air defenses have proven to be some of the most capable and best air defense systems in the world. But then again, you have to caveat that, well, how many other air defense systems around the world are actually this active in shooting down targets every single day? The Iron Dome has shown, and again, this is a lot of U.S. equipment here that is being utilized. So it's not just Israeli technology. This is American technology at play. The Iron Dome has shown that it's really impressive, really capable. It can shoot down mortars that are launched by soldiers on the ground, the small little grenades, basically, that are fired out of a tube. That's really impressive. But it's these drones. Somehow, the drones have proven to be incredibly elusive to the air defenses. The Iron Dome has mistakenly shot down their own drones. The Israelis have shot down in the north, fighting Hezbollah, their own drones twice now. Confirmed twice. And at the same time, too, Hezbollah has shot down one of their drones. So this drone warfare, as it morphs into the future of warfare, has been really interesting to watch how some of the most capable modern militaries on Earth are really struggling with what should be rudimentary technology. They're packing lawnmower parts into some of these smaller drones that Iran supplies to Hezbollah in the north. And this is all like consumer grade technology. It's not like the most fascinating stuff that some military scientist worked up in a lab deep underground. This is actually something that you can buy online and make yourself. If you really wanted to make one of these drones yourself, you could. And then Hezbollah in the north, again, will pack these full of pounds of explosives and fling them at northern Israel. And time again, we've seen them not shot down by the aerial defense. And I would wager that more often than not, based on the reports that I get, that a lot of the times these drones are actually shot down by the fighter jets, and these are air-to-air kills that the Israelis have been having their fighter jets up in the north kind of just on standby. And then the pilots themselves, just to make sure, will go and down those drones themselves instead of relying on the Iron Dome. I don't think the ballistic missile threat is something that you should take very seriously. That's going to be a major concern. But by all accounts, what the Israelis tell us, that there have been over 200 targets that they've shot down in the last 9 months that have come from Yemen, come from the Houthis. That seems to be accurate based on civilian reports on the ground around the Sinai and in the southern city of Eilat, which is in southern Israel. Those folks every week report hearing an explosion off on the water, and then the IDF will come out and say that they intercepted another target that was coming towards Eilat. And the who done it question when that happens is really elusive, because they don't want to come out and tell anybody that XYZ enemy is firing on Israel today. They kind of keep that under wraps. It's entirely possible that there are Iranian proxies in Iraq and Syria that are launching some of these weapons as well and trying to target Israel this way. So to answer that question, how concerned should Israel be about a Houthi threat? It's really just a mesh of Israel is facing kind of an octopus of an enemy right now through Iran. The proxies are collaborating, they're working together. And if there was to come a day, and I think we should pay really close attention to what happens with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, if there was to come a day when Israel decided to tackle one of these enemies head on and engage with a much more extensive, extreme warfare than what we've already seen, then you would be likely to be facing all of the other tentacles. You would say they really start to tackle Hezbollah more than they have with just airstrikes, and they actually begin a ground incursion, or a full-scale conflict breaks out between Hezbollah and Israel. I would say 90%, you're 90% likely to see a fire coming from Syria, from Iraq, from the Houthis, all at the same time, and perhaps Iran decides to directly engage with Israel again, especially if they feel like one of their main proxies is threatened to such a degree that they're all willing to join in and engage. But the key point here is that they're working together. They call themselves a resistance front, that they're a resistance for the people of Gaza, that they're going to continue to pull military resources away, Israeli military resources away from the fight in Gaza, and make Israel have to worry about its other borders. If the resistance front joins together and they all start to attack together, then that's going to be a very extreme fight, and one that the Israelis are really cautious about, and why they haven't directly tackled Hezbollah full force, even though they have 60,000 plus civilians evacuated from that northern border for 9 months now. They haven't engaged with Hezbollah directly because they know that if they do, there's a high likelihood that they're going to be facing off against 4 other foes in the region.